Recently, I have been loving ResinCrete. If you saw my previous ResinCrete video, I show how versatile it is and how easy it is to use. But one of the things that I wanted to try out was how to color it, because the kit comes with, their own colors, but I wanted to see what other pigments I could use to color the ResinCrete. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you 4 ways to color your ResinCrete and 1 way to absolutely avoid, because it does not work. But before we get started, make sure to tap the subscribe button so you never miss any of my tutorials or reviews. All right, let's get into it. I decided to use pigments and colors that I have used in either resin or concrete coloring in the past. And so I went with mica powder, acrylic paint, alcohol ink, liquid fabric dye, and of course the ResinCrete pigment that comes in the starter kit. When you're working with ResinCrete, you're gonna follow a 10:3 ratio. 10 parts ResinCrete to 3 parts water. So anytime I'm mixing this up, that's the ratio I'm following. First up is the ResinCrete pigments that come in the kit. And this one to me feels like a really concentrated acrylic paint. It's highly pigmented. It's gonna color the ResinCrete perfectly. It's very smooth, easy to mix as well. And I wanted to start with this one as our control, like to see what colors should look like in the ResinCrete. Next up is the liquid fabric dye. So instead of adding water, I just added 3 parts of the liquid fabric dye to the 10 parts of the ResinCrete. And this one was thicker than the last one. I ended up adding just a touch more water, like a little tiny bit, just to loosen it up because it just felt so stiff and sticky. But eventually it mixed up well and I was able to pour it in and move on to the next one, which is alcohol ink. With the alcohol ink, I noticed that no matter how much I mixed it or how much I added, it just didn't thoroughly mix. So it stayed this light blue no matter how much I added. Next up is acrylic paint. And so this one is as close to the ResinCrete pigment as I found in my experiments here. And I didn't have to add a lot, but what I noticed is that it kind of soaked up some of the water, so it didn't pour as smoothly as the ResinCrete pigment. So maybe adding a little bit more water into the mixture would help with this as well. Next up is the mica powder. And so with the mica powder, I just added a little bit to start out with, because in resin, mica powder can be very overpowering, but not so much in the ResinCrete, honestly. I felt like I had to add a whole lot more than I would ever add in resin. So it really soaks it up and the color isn't as pronounced, and you definitely don't get that shimmery after effect when you mix it in with the ResinCrete. I'm assuming that the white really cancels out a lot of that. Now those are our 5 pigments, but I could not get over how pale the alcohol ink one was, so I decided to try something new and add drops of alcohol ink to the dry ResinCrete powder and then mix water in to see if that would change the coloring at all. And it kind of did. I feel like it picked up more of the color, but it still wasn't as pronounced as I had hoped it would be. Now that the pieces have had a chance to cure, I'm gonna rank them from best to worst. Number 1 would definitely be the ResinCrete pigment. Number 2 would be the acrylic paint. And it's really a tie because I feel like they both mixed well and they came out really smooth and consistent. The only reason why I put acrylic paint at 2 was because it did kind of soak up some of that water. And so you do have to adjust your measurements just a tad. Number 3 would be the mica powder. It takes longer to mix, but the color is pretty consistent. There is a little bit of splotchiness, but not too terrible. Number 4 would be alcohol ink number 2. So that's the one where I mixed the alcohol ink into the powder first and then added the water. But even with that one, I can see that there's speckles and spots. Number 5 would be the alcohol ink in the water, in the mixed mixture. And you can see that one is very spotty. It's giving robin's egg, right? Very speckled. And so the alcohol ink was never able to fully incorporate into the mixture. So if you're going to use alcohol ink, I say mix it into the dry powder first, then add your water. And number 6, at dead last, is the liquid fabric dye. So it looks really, really bold and vibrant right here, but the reason why it isn't flipped over like the other hearts are is because I could never get it out of the mold. It never actually cured. I waited 24 hours and it never cured. The other pieces cured within half an hour. So that really tells you that the liquid fabric dye is not the way to go. It was pasty and sticky after 24 hours. It never set, it never cured, and I don't know how long it would take to cure, but I wasn't about to find out. Now you know what to use to color your ResinCrete and what to avoid. If you want to watch a full tutorial and unboxing of the ResinCrete kit, watch this video next.